Kevin Hay.
Ki te tiamana o te whare tēnā koe ki a koutou huri noa te whare tēnā koutou katoa. Ngā mihi o te wiki o te reo Māori anō ki a tātou katoa. Mr Chair, I thought it was somewhat ironic that Simon O'Connor in his contribution just now spoke about the budget in parallel to the presentation he's just been at, which said it's not about the money, it's about something else. And indeed, that has been the approach of the government to the health budget. It's been about something else, not about enough money. Now, Dr Coleman's predecessor, Tony Ryle, in my view, was the most political of ministers. He got up in the morning and approached every single issue with the lens of, does this win me votes or lose me votes? And Mr Chair, that led to an awful lot of problems in the health sector. But at least on one occasion, he actually got to the point of conceding that the amount of money that was going into health in his budget had not been enough to keep pace with demographic change and with the cost pressures in the health sector. And what he said was, well, stupid old Greens, don't they realise there's been a global financial crisis and everyone has to tighten their belts? Now, it's a point that I disagreed with. I pointed to the $20 billion being spent on roads of significance to national, for example, sir. So it was a question of priorities. But unfortunately, Dr Coleman, despite, I thought, an early promising start of perhaps approaching the portfolio in a different way, has now reverted to form. And so the truth is, Labor is quite right. You know, over time, National has underfunded the health sector by a lot of money, approaching $2 billion. And Dr Coleman denies it, Simon O'Connor just denied it, but in the same way every time. Oh, just a denial. There's never, ever any kind of attempt to dig into the analysis by independent economists and say what in that analysis is wrong. The simple fact is the system has been underfunded, sir. And Mr Chair, what I want to talk about are the areas that have particularly suffered. In the DHB sector, the areas that have particularly suffered are those that don't have targets. When I ask Dr Coleman a question about health, he'll respond, whatever the question is, by talking about the number of hip operations the health sector has done. And certainly it's true that in the area of targets, the government has genuinely put more money in. Its performance has improved. But if you put more effort and resource and focus into the areas you have targets for, it is inevitable that the government must be putting less into everything else. And that everything else includes public health, the services that are intended to keep people well in the first place. It includes mental health, and I'm going to come to that in a second. It includes all of those organisations that are not part of the DHB sector, because DHBs, under extraordinary financial pressure, know that if they fund their own service, they get to keep the money in their overall bottom line. If they fund someone else, they lose the money from the bottom line, and the minister says deficits are not permitted. So the non-government organisations that play such a precious role in our health sector are the very ones who have borne the brunt of the underfunding from this government. Mr Chair, I want to talk about mental health in the minute that I have remaining. In the review of the Waikato DHB that Dr John Crawshaw led, he identified low staff morale. He identified a funder arm that was paying less than the nationally agreed price for mental health services. He identified patient-to-staff ratios that were much worse than they should have been, and he identified positions being held vacant so that the DHB could try and balance its budget. All of those things have contributed to the utter disaster that has befallen mental health services. And Waikato is just one of those areas. Capital and Coast DHB is a disaster area. Northland DHB, Southern DHB. The disasters multiply and multiply across the country. And that's why, sir, I am saying this minister, this government must initiate an urgent nationwide inquiry into mental health services. Thank you, sir.
I call Rhea Bond.